So let's get started. One of the things that happen when we're thinking about prospecting is that we are very busy all the time. Our profession is extremely demanding, right? So one idea that can help you to tackle that feel of being overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do is to grab a calendar and allocate a specific day for a specific time. I am going to go in more detail into this idea a little bit further before I'm going to set up the whole idea on how you can organize your time. So what happens with allocating a specific time is that, let's say, if you allocate, for example, 1 hour a week to do social media, it is not overwhelming. It is perfectly doable, and you can even have a little alarm on your phone telling you, hey, tomorrow you have 1 hour of social media. You get ready. You spend 1 hour on social media, you're done for the week. You can spend 1 hour a day if you want, 6 hours a day, but you know that you're not going to get distracted by it again during the rest of the week. You know that, Wednesday mornings, Thursday afternoons, you already finished that particular task. Another thing, and this is very important, if you make glorious plans, okay, we are Sparta and I'm going to spend 12 hours a day doing push-ups, probably that is not going to happen. It's going to feel like a defeat. It's going to feel like you haven't been able to do what you promised yourself. And that is because you set unrealistic expectations. So set up very realistic expectations. If you're going to spend 1 or 2 hours a day prospecting, that is reasonable. 4 to 5 hours a day prospecting, that can be very unreasonable. Yeah. So remember this, be realistic. Epic intentions will flop more often than modest, manageable plans. And be flexible. Everything on paper looks and feels perfect, but you always have an emergency, a situation, a work situation. You're about to start with your social media Wednesday, for example, and then the phone rings and it's a lead for a listing. What are you going to do? You're going to tell the potential seller, listen, I can talk to you right now because I'm doing my social media? No. So be flexible. Among your the time that you allocate for every task, also allocate a little flexibility. Like, okay, maybe I can start a little bit later, or if I cannot do this today, then I have a catch-up day. Yes, things like that. Think about that. If you do that, you're going to be able to fulfill all your weekly targets. And remember, we are going to cover the weekly targets in more detail later on. But if you do this, you're going to be able to fulfill all your weekly targets without any problem, even if you have a series of emergencies and unpredictable events in your week. The next is very, very important. You need to track information and track the information about your actions too. If I grab the yellow pages and just spend the whole day calling different numbers, but I don't keep track who did I talk to, who did not pick up the phone, who told me to go packing, who told me that they were very interested in talking to me and meeting me in person, what do I do with that information? We don't have perfect memories. We cannot recollect precisely everything that we did. So find a way to keep track of what you do. Now, how are you going to keep track? You are going to do it in your own style, in the way that you do things normally. Are you comfortable using spreads? Then use a spread. Are you very comfortable using a CRM? Use a CRM. Did you already try using Sage, our CRM on the Resource Center? Go right ahead and use Sage because it's a great CRM. One way or another, make sure that you keep track of one, who you talk to, and when I say talk, it means emails, text messages, etc. And two, what happened, what type of activity, yes? In order to keep track of your work, another thing that you can do is checklist. And the checklist is something separate from your CRM or your spread. So for example, again, going back to my social media day, yeah, let's say the Mondays at 7 a.m. I do social media. Well, I could have a little checklist saying, okay, on social media, I want to post something from Agent Icon. Yes, that's one of the many tools that you have. Then I want to post something from Marketing Resource. Then I want to post a link to buy site to see if I can collect any buyers. Then I want to check who liked my post from last week, and the people that like my post, maybe I can go and add them as friends. Things of that sort. Keep a checklist for every one of your tasks, and of course, you're going to keep track of your tasks on a different system like a CRM or a spread. Make notes. This is very important. Let's say that today is your FISBO day, yes, and you are calling for sale by owners. And here's Justin for sale by owner. He picks up the phone and say, "Hey, yeah, I don't know, I want to save the money on the commission. Although I don't know, this thing feels a little bit overwhelming." That right there, that is very important information. Maybe you're not going to remember that Justin the seller told you 3 weeks ago that it felt a little overwhelming. Right now, when you're talking, you feel very confident that you understand what they're telling you. But are you confident that you're going to remember those little details 2, 3 weeks down the line when you call them again? So make notes of anything that is relevant. For example, they can tell you, listen, I can't talk to you right now because the Dolphins are playing and there's nothing that matters in the world more than the Dolphins. That's important. It's important to know that you're talking to a football fan and he's a big fan of the Dolphins, right? That will give you a little edge when you contact them again. Yes, the first thing out your mouth can be, "Hey, how about them Dolphins?" And that helps you a little bit. So make sure that you make notes, write down relevant information about your communication with your potential prospects. And the same thing goes for people that picks up the phone and they're horribly rude. Well, maybe you don't want to call them again, right? Make notes. I am not going to call this person again because they were terribly rude, right? Um, I always repeat this, and I repeat it for two reasons. One, you have to repeat something many times in order for someone to retain information. And also, it is incredibly important. Research, serious scientific research, shows that all of us humans take somewhere between 5 and 7 times of reading or hearing or seeing something in order to really remember it. When it moves to your long-term storage in your brain, when you really remember something, it takes between 5 and 7 times. So if you call a potential seller once, even if they were awesome, and then you don't call them again, you just wait for them to call you back, chances are they are not going to call you back. The normal bustle and hustle of life is going to overtake them, and they're going to forget that they had a conversation with your lovely self. So again, going back to why do you need to keep track of your activities? It's because that on that spread, for example, just in the SVO seller, you want to have at least 7 columns, at the very minimum 5, okay? Saying, okay, I call them, then I send them a letter, then I send them a postcard, then I send them a passenger pigeon, something, okay? But you want to contact them at the very least 5 times to 7 before you start a new cycle with new people. By the time you contact them 7 times, chances are extremely high that they will remember you, okay? Um, so in a nutshell, every potential prospect you have to contact between 5 and 7 times in order to maximize your chances of securing a listing. This is not my idea that I just pulled out on a sleepless night. This is serious scientific research about how human memory forms. Now, we are going to do an exercise. You don't need to unmute yourself. I'm going to ask you a number of questions. I'm going to pause 2 to 3 seconds after a question, and I want you to ask yourself that question and give yourself a very honest answer. If you were a carpenter, would you use a hammer or you would just punch nails with your fists? Think about the answer. What would you do? Ask yourself, if I was a mover, would I carry heavy furniture on my back or would I use a dolly and a truck? And last question, same thing. Think about the question, answer yourself mentally. If I was an astronomer, would I study the stars with the naked eye from the roof of my home, or would I use telescopes and computers and whatnot? I cannot read minds, but I imagine that the answer to all of those questions was if you were a conduit, you would use a hammer, a mover, you would use a dolly in a truck, and if you were an astronomer, you would use a telescope, because you know that the use of tools multiplies your efforts and lessens the time that it takes to complete a task. So use the tools that you have. If you're a Berkshire Hathaway agent, you have dozens of tools. I'm just mentioning three in here because they're relevant to listings, but I could mention 3 dozen. We don't have the time. I don't want to keep you here on a federal holiday for 3 hours. So very quickly, marketing resource, you can do e-cards, you can do flyers, you can do social media posts, you can do drip campaigns. You can do drip campaigns that take you 2-3 minutes to set up. You can do drip campaigns, the same thing with your e-cards, that tell you who read your email, when did they read it, how many times they closed, they clicked on your email. Use AdWorks. Every single listing that you have, if you're a Berkshire Hathaway agent, every single listing that you have, doesn't matter what type of listing, it could be a $1,000 rental, or it could be a $10 million mansion. Every single listing, get an AdWords campaign. You should add your seller's email address to your AdWords dashboard, because the seller will see the ad for the listing on a major website. And when I say major, I mean Times Magazine, CNN, Fox News, Rolling Stone, ESPN, major websites. Imagine that. Imagine that you just listed a, let's say, $150,000 condo, and the seller, the day after tomorrow, is browsing the web, is just checking the news on the BBC, and on the BBC itself, there you go, it says they see their own listing with your number and your name. How impressed are going to be? Use the tools that you have. And again, you want to organize your contacts, and you want to keep track of who you talk to. Use a CRM. You have an outstanding CRM that you have free access to because you're with Berkshire Hathaway, Sage CRM. Use it. Use the tools, because if you were a carpenter, you would not punch nails with your fist. I am absolutely sure of that. Yes? This is an example of a work week. And this is where we wrap up. This is where we go back to the beginning when I was telling you that allocating a particular time for a particular task is a very smart way. And I'm fulfilling my promise. We're covering this whole material in less than half an hour. Imagine this. Again, this is an example. I want you to design this in the way that you feel comfortable. For example, if you don't like to work with FISBOs, change the FISBOs date to something else. You don't have to do it 5 days a week. It could be 3, it could be 6. This is just an example to give you an idea how you can get a monumental amount of work done in very little time. Monday could be your buyer's day. So you reach out to 10 past buyers. When you reach out to someone, especially somebody that you had business with in the past, show personal interest. I want you to develop a personal relationship in which you are the trusted family realtor for everything. So don't call them and tell them, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but if you know anybody that wants to sell or buy a home, give me a call. Bye. That's not very warm and fuzzy. That doesn't really make anyone feel that you care. So just call them and tell them, hey, how are things going? How's your family? How's your little dog, etc. Show personal interest. I want you to develop a personal relationship. Yes. And for example, right now, and again, this is just an example. I want you to do things in your own style. But right now, if you are dealing with past buyers, well, they bought a home, remind them that this is the time to file for homestead exemption. Yes, in many cases, they're not thinking about it. They are going to think about it in June when it's too late to do it. So just tell them, hey, I was just thinking about you. How's the family and whatnot? Just make sure, remember to file for homestead exemption, right? That is wonderful. You're doing them a solid with that. Another example, then you did your 10 calls for past buyers on Mondays. That's it. You're done for the day. Yes, doesn't sound too taxing, am I right? Tuesday could be your new seller's day. Was a new seller, was a seller that you haven't dealt with before. So Tuesdays can be your farming day. Farming any way you want. You can send letters, you can send emails, you can knock on doors, any way that you like to farm, but allocate 1, 2, 3 hours on your new seller's day just to farm. One idea, again, this is just an example, is pull 10 potential sellers from the systems, pull 10 likely sellers, and if you missed my presentation on how to sort between likely and unlikely sellers, you have it on YouTube, or you can just send me a little message and I'll send you the link. But if you have 10 likely sellers, then you can send them 10 envelopes, big manila envelopes with an RPR property report, with a letter of introduction in there, with your business card. Yes, send it by mail. Not a lot of work. You can do that for 10 sellers in something like about an hour. And I'm talking about individualized reports that talk only about their property. It has their property address, their name. That's a letter. It's not the same thing as receiving a postcard saying, hey, we have balloons and we sell homes. No, you're talking to them directly. Wednesday could be a social media day. Um, just post the buy side link so you can capture some buyers in there. Send an e-card to your database offering market valuations, um, through social media. Send messages through Facebook Messenger. That's another thing that is not well tapped. If you send personalized messages like, hey Jimmy, how are you, I love your post about the kitty fighting with a slice of pizza, you are creating personal connections. Thursdays, it could be your past sellers days. Yes, don't drop the ball on that. Your past customers are a massive source of business. So get in touch with your past sellers, send them a market update, or send them anything, send them cookies for gingerbread, whatever you want, but get in touch with your past sellers, right? And Fridays could be your FISBOs and expires day. Call 5 FISBOs and 5 expires. Yes, you can just ask for the business point blank, or you can, for example, send the FISBOs our FTGA seller's guide, which spells out in great detail what is involved in selling a property and how complex it is. Whether they decide to actually work with a realtor or not, you're still offering a greatly valuable resource if you do that. As you can see, I just spoke about activities on 5 days a week. I just spoke activities that can take you a minimum of 1 hour, but a maximum of about 2, 3 hours. You understand that 5 days, let's say 2 hours, it's only 10 hours. It's only 10 hours a week. But if you organize your time in this way, I guarantee that you are going to see a significant uptick in the business that you're capturing. I'm absolutely confident. And I'm talking about an effort that this should take you about only 10 hours a week. Organize your time, know what you're going to do on every single day, keep track of what you do, use checklists, get more listings, get better listings with less effort.